Fred, thanks for meeting with me today. I appreciate it. As I mentioned briefly over the phone, in a nutshell of what we do here at Federal Financial Group, I'm gonna just want to touch on those again. Basically, just to refresh, we help people eliminate their debt much faster than they otherwise might have been able to without us or without our help. Number two, we help reduce taxes, and what business owner wouldn't be interested in figuring out how to reduce those taxes? I know I am. And then number three, and this is the biggie, is help people get to retirement a lot sooner than they might have otherwise been able to without some of our planning.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, as I mentioned over the phone, I'm not here to sell you anything today, so you can just leave your wallet wherever you put it. Don't bring out your checkbook. We're not worried about that. If after we chat about a few things today, if you see something that hits your hot button, then we can certainly get back together again and discuss that idea. But let's take a moment and talk about some of the issues that we all face out there. Have you noticed, go back 10 or 15 years ago, have you noticed the cost of things and maybe compare them to today? Do you think it was a little less expensive or more expensive to buy something 10 years ago?
Oh yeah, less expensive.
Okay, well, that's one of the big issues, and that's going to keep going. So that's one of the things that we as business owners have to face. We've got rising costs. Look at the cost of gas and such. But basically, you've also got lack of security or increasing debt load and so forth. And I'm sure you as a business owner already deal with some of these issues. So that's some of what we're talking about. But basically, as I mentioned to you over the phone, we're going to talk about helping you become financially independent, which in a nutshell, if you can bear with me on this idea, I'm not the greatest at conceptualizing, but that we define at Federal Financial Group, financial independence basically is if you had enough money put away over here in its own account that it spit off enough interest, it would surpass the income you're making over here at your job. We call that financial independence because now you're in a position where you don't need this income from your job. You've got this over here. That's true independence, and man, what a great place to be. But I don't know about you, but I was just at Wendy's the other day, and I walked in, it was 2:30 in the afternoon. I was with a buddy of mine, and we were just grabbing a quick sandwich, you know. But I go in, and what do I see? But a 70-something-year-old gal, little old gal, looked like old enough to be my mother or grandmother, but she's sitting there picking up trash and such and wiping down the tables, you know how they do. But when she reached over to pick up this trash, you could see that her back was, and I promise you, Fred, she probably didn't think at 40 or 50, which is how old we are, she'd be where she is today at 70-something. Do you agree?
Yeah, still working. That's all.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've been into the Ace Hardwares. Maybe you see the older guys there. I promise you, they're not there because they're bored. They're there because they have to be. So our goal today, Fred, is to give you a bit of a glimpse of the roadmap we can help create for you. And at Federal Financial, we know what the problems are. We have put together a 7-step process that will help someone such as yourself get from where you are to where you want to be.
Awesome.
Excellent. I'm gonna rip through these really fast, okay? But if you see something that kind of rings true, or you want to stop and chat about that a little more, let me know and we can discuss a little bit further. But basically, I'm just gonna rip through these, and if you see something, we'll just kind of move right on. But number one, step one. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to ask you, but you know, speaking of the Wendy story, if let me just give you a glimmer of how grim it really is out there. Fred, if we brought 165-year-olds into the room today, okay, baby boomers, and you're one of them, but if we brought 100 of them into the room, just take a guess, how many do you think would be able to retire on? By the way, I'm going to give you a caveat: no more than $35,000 a year, which isn't a lot. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know, 20.
Yeah, I wish. Believe it or not, it's 4.
Wow.
That's 4. I mean, that's incredible. That means 96 of them don't have a clue. They're out. They're going to work the rest of their life. That doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have some proof. My dad was 72 when he died of a heart attack. And it was February 9th of 2010. But let me tell you something. He was still working full time. Now, granted, he was a CFO and he did a good job and he made a decent income. He made 5 figures a month. But you know what? He was still working when he was 72. I don't want to be that guy. I don't know about you. Okay, step one, Fred, step one, we want to inspect what we expect. Now, what does that mean? When we help you draw a mode map, what we're going to be able to do here is when you're taking a trip with your fiance and you're going to go visit Southern California, do you just get in the car and wander? Now, maybe you do, but do you usually know where you're going?
Right.
Okay, can you imagine a trip where someone says you got to take a trip, but what direction, and you don't have a map? Okay, that might be kind of difficult. Well, same thing holds true for financial planning, retirement planning. You kind of got to know where you're going to end up in order for us to help you get there. Inspect what you expect. Step two, we're going to help you increase your cash flow. I mentioned that over the phone, but we're going to help you plug up the leaks and the holes in your budget, because trust me, I'm not asking you to pay more out for something. What we're going to do is help you find the leaky faucet and budget and maybe plug that up and help re-divert that somewhere else over here. Step two. Step three is a big one. Touches my heart. I don't know about you, but most of us have a ton of debt. Step three, we're going to help you eliminate that debt that you have a lot faster. We have something called the Debt Eliminator, and it's a power down system, but it helps you without paying any extra over and above what you're paying now. Just drive that debt down, maybe shave 10, 15 years off of that debt payment structure. Number four. Number four is a big one. We're going to help you set up an emergency fund if you don't already have one. Now, you may already have something, but we would kind of examine that a little bit, make sure it's what you need it to be. I always tell my clients 3 to 6 months of income is a good number. But we're going to help you. If you don't have one, we're going to get that kind of going. Step five is a big one too. Help you protect what's most important to you. Now, here's the good news, Fred, and you're lucky that I'm sitting here talking to you today. I happen to have my own insurance agency on top of, in addition to hear what we're visiting about today. So you may have property and casualty insurance, car insurance, house insurance, and business insurance. That all costs money. The good news is, as a property casualty agent, I can help look at those figures and see if we can help reduce some of those costs. Maybe free up some extra money in that regard, or in those areas. Anyway, but basically we're going to look at protecting or making sure you're properly protected. This is where disability and life insurance and those kinds of subjects will be addressed. But again, you may be well covered in that area. We just want to make sure that's the case. Step number six is a big one, and that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. And if you'll listen to me, and can I be strong with you here? Can I be strong with you? Okay. If you'll listen to me, step 6 will change the way you think about money for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Are we on the same page here?
Interesting.
Excellent. Okay. Let's jump into it. Now I brought a piece of paper, and I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to visit with you about some topics here, and I'm just going to jump right into this. Fred, have you heard of the rule of 72?
Yeah, but I don't really remember what it means.
All right. Well, let me draw it out for you here. Okay, let's say we could get 4%. And again, I don't know if we could or not, but let's use 4% a reasonable number for you and I to discuss. Okay, let's use 4%. Let's just say you could get 4. Okay, what we do, Einstein developed this theory a million years ago, but you know, the genius he was, he developed the concept regarding the doubling of money. So here's what we do. We take the interest rate we think we can earn, let's call 4%. We divide that number to 72, it gives us 18 years. 18 years. Okay, so let's use this example. Let's say we started with $100 today. There are 2 major battles we have to be able to win in talking about step 6, and here they are. Number 1 is inflation. We got to address it. We got to be able to beat that inflation battle. And number 2, taxes, which I'm sure is a big one for you. But let's discuss this inflation first. So the rule is 72. So let's say we have $100 today, okay? 18 years go by, guess what? It's doubled to $200. Now, $200, another 18 years goes by, now $400. Let me ask you a simple question. 36 years have gone by. Fred, do you think that $400 36 years from now will buy what $100 buys today?
Probably not.
Absolutely right. That is inflation. Okay, now we have 3 ways to address the inflation issue. 3 basic concepts of savings and accounts that we can use to put our money into. So let's talk about putting our money to work for us now. And number 1, we have something called fixed accounts. Now, fixed account spread would be banks, CDs, money markets, fixed strategies that just earn a decent, reasonable rate of return. But here's the deal. Right now, I don't know about you, but most banks I deal with, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're not even paying 1 on these accounts. Maybe if you're worth over 100,000, which I don't know too many people there are, maybe you get over 1, but maybe insurance companies might pay 3 to 3.5%. But honestly, that's about what we're looking at. Well, if you pay attention to what I just mentioned about inflation, it's going to be real hard for your money to keep pace with inflation or barely at that rate of return. Okay, second idea. Second place we can put our money, and the beauty is there are guarantees, but that's about all there is a guarantee that you won't lose. Second place to put our money are stocks and mutual funds, what I call stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Here's the deal. An example of these would be 401ks, IRAs, and SEPs or simples. If you're a business owner, you might know that term. That's an IRA for business owners. But here's the deal, okay? Let me draw this out for you, okay? In this case, we don't know whether your money is going to be at the top of the market when you are ready to retire or the bottom of the market. So what's the biggest issue with the stocks and mutual funds? There are no guarantees. None. Now, again, if you're at the top when you decide to call it a day, awesome. Let me share a quick story with you about a friend of mine's uncle. True story. Uncle Dave. He's the most happy, miserable guy we know. But let me tell you something. He had his life together, perfect life, but he had planned to the T exactly when he was going to retire, January 29th of 2009. And yet, well, guess what happened in 2008? Do you remember? Yeah, he lost 40% of his 401k. That set him back. He had to work another 5 years just to get the 401k to go back to even. We didn't even want to be around Uncle Dave because he was miserable. But my point is, he was finally able to retire January 29th of 2014. God bless Dave, and he's a little better today. My point is, he took a chance, and he bet the market would be up here, but it was here. Again, if you use stocks and mutual funds, no problem with that. Just remember, you're bearing the burden of the risk, not someone else. The third strategy, the third concept is what I call the fixed strategy. Scratch that. The indexed strategy. Index strategy. Have you ever heard of the index strategy?
Not really.
Okay. Are you familiar with the S&P 500?
A little bit.
Okay. It's connected to the S&P 500, which, as you may or may not know, is connected to the 5 best, well-run, the 500 top companies in America. Basically, are made up of most of our economy is kind of based on that. So as they go, so does the interest rate. Okay. So let me give you an example. Okay. So let's say we use the index strategy for you, and the first year, the market grows by 10%. Your account would also grow by 10%. Second year, market grows by another 10%. Your account again would grow by 10%. Doing good so far, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. All of a sudden, 2008 happens again, and whammo, the market drops by 36%. If you were in the stocks and mutual funds, what would have happened to your account?
You lose
36%.
Right.
With the index strategy, here's what happens. Your account stays level. So that year you didn't earn, but guess what? You didn't lose. You earned 0. Let's make sure you understand that. Everybody else's accounts dropped. Yours stayed the same.
Okay.
You developed a high water mark. Okay. However, 2009 comes back around. Guess what? Market grew by 23%. You would have taken off from where you left off and off to the races you go again. Now, there is a negative. As I see it, I've got to list the pros and the cons. The con that I see, and the only major con I see with this type of strategy, there are caps with this type of program. Because if they're not going to let you participate in any negative, they're not going to let you get it all on the good years. They're going to, cap it at absurd. Here's the good news. Most of the companies, and we deal with about 32 different carriers that I'm contracted with, 4 of which have just fantastic histories. But right now I can tell you it's between 12 and 15% is a reasonable cap rate for most of these programs we're talking about. And right now you can get upwards of 13% is the current cap rate in a couple of them we're talking about. So that's a decent rate of return, okay? Again, those are in a nutshell, okay? And I don't want to get too detailed right now, but those in a nutshell are the three places to put our money for to beat inflation, okay? Okay. Anyway, but the second battle we have to meet or address and get over is the tax battle. So before I do that, let me just drive home the rule of 72 for you for a moment. But here we got you and three of your good buddies. And let's just pretend you're 29 again, okay? And let's just say you got a good friend, John, and all of you are 29, and all of you have $10,000 to put someplace, okay?
Okay.
John over here says, you know what? I'm going to stay conservative, and I'm going to use that 4% idea, the fixed account.
Right.
And so he does. And 18 years go by, and he's earning 4%. His money doubles. 20,000. He's 47.
Right.
Another 18 years go by. Now he's 65. He's got 40,000. Let me ask you a quick question, Fred. How long do you think John's 40,000 is going to last him into retirement?
Not very long.
You're right. Maybe a year or less if he spends like I do. Here's the deal. Is it safe to say John may end up being one of those guys that's at Ace Hardware or a greeter at Walmart?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take friend number two. Let's say you got a good friend, Mark. And Mark says, well, I'm going to take a little more risk, but he says he can get 6%, so he does. The same 10,000 at his age, 65, would double again. It would grow to 80,000. Now we're doing a little better, right? But still, how long is 80,000 going to last? Maybe 2, maybe 3 years. Now let's say I'm picking on Uncle Dave, but let's say Uncle Dave is one of the four guys, but he's a little smarter and he figured out how to earn 8%. He was able to turn his 10,000 because it doubles every 9 years. Every 9 years, it would grow to $160,000. Now we're talking. But you, Fred, you were the smartest one of the bunch. You put your money in something averaging 12%. With no risk, and lo and behold, you were able to grow that same money to $640,000. Let me just ask you a quick question. How big of a mistake was that your buddy John made over here?
Yeah.
$600,000, if my math serves right, okay? That's a big mistake, okay? Let's talk about the tax situation for just a moment. Let me do so by sharing a story with you. I'm a story guy. Okay, Jimmy. Jimmy walks into the bank a few years ago. This is back when the banks could pay a reasonable rate of return, let's just say 5%. Jimmy walks into Mr. Banker and he says, Mr. Banker, I want to have $1 million 30 years from today when I am ready to retire. What do I got to do? And let's say the banker again says, well, we'll get you 5%. Mr. Jimmy, you're going to have to put away $1,639 a month. Let me just ask you, what do you think Jimmy did?
There's no way you could do that at 30 years old.
Exactly. He did the worst thing possible, which is nada. Zippo. He walked out the door, and sadly, Jimmy is also working at the local, we just saw him the other day at the Ace Hardware down on Broadway, okay? However, what if the banker had said to Jimmy, well, wait a minute, Jimmy, I can get you 10% on your money. Still taxable in the bank. But let's say he can get 10% for Jimmy. Now Jimmy only has to put away $899 a month. That's a bit better, right? But how many families do you know that can put away $900 a month consistently?
Yeah, it's
Not a
not
lot.
hard.
However, what if you and I could help Jimmy grow that money tax deferred and eventually be able to pull it out with little or maybe no taxes involved, like tax free? Would that be good?
Yeah.
Now Jimmy only has to put away $438 a month. Now
Wow.
again, $1,600 might be kind of difficult. $900 still difficult. But do you think you could put away $300-400 a month if you were Jimmy and you wanted to become a millionaire?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And quite frankly, Fred, you don't have to start with 438. In example, you may only be able to start with a couple hundred, 200, 300. But here's the good news. With what we start with, we can adjust it and grow it over time. So as you pay off a debt, as we help you bind up those leaks in your budget, we can maybe find a few extra dollars here and a few extra dollars there to plop towards. So at some point, you may be putting away $600, $700, $800 a month. The more you put away, the quicker you get to retirement. Does that make sense to you, that story about
Yeah.
Jimmy? Okay, about the tax. So again, to refresh, our goal is to not just beat inflation, it's to beat the taxable situation and figure out how to reduce or eliminate completely the taxable situation, okay? Now, step seven. Step seven is estate planning. Again, if you already have an estate that's worth worrying about and planning for, we have a whole division that we would refer. We have another company we can refer you to, but it's right in-house. It's a one-stop shop, so we can refer right out. They do wills and trusts and so on.
Mhm.
But let me ask you, Fred, let me jump back here to the beginning and let me just ask you, of those 7 steps I just got through sharing with you, what one makes the most sense or seems the most important to address right now?
Oh yeah, long-term financial independence, step 6.
Excellent.
I need to really do something on my retirement.
Excellent. I'm glad you said that. Well, now, Fred, basically what I do here at this point in the presentation is I would gather just a little bit of some information about you, and then I will go back to the office, plug that into my supercomputer, and we will create a plan that works for you, come back and present it to you the next couple of days, and if it looks like something you'd like to move forward, we would make some new decisions at that point.
Great.
Let me just go ahead and ask, your fiance's name is Mary? Okay, excellent. Okay, so listen, thank you for allowing me to gather some basic information from you here. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Okay, again, so basically, as I said, I'm not selling you anything today. That was never our intention, just to find out if there was something here that made some sense for you. As you said a moment ago, step 6 sounds like that's something pretty important. And I'd like to just share with you, last week I was at another client's home. I was visiting with a wife and a husband about this very topic, and I came back to them to present this plan. And let me tell you, she stopped and she was almost in tears at that moment. She said, TJ, you know what? She goes, I bet if I were to walk around my neighborhood right now, knock on everybody's door and ask them, hey, do you know when you're going to be able to retire? They wouldn't have a clue. She said, you know what? My husband and I, we now have a clue as to exactly when we're going to be able to retire, the date, the year, and the time because of this. And she said, you know what, if we piss away the rest of our money and do nothing else but this, at least we know. And Fred, I'm going to tell you something. It kind of choked me up a little because right then and there, it's like I could see them bond together as one
Beautiful.
concept. So there you have it. I've got that information. Now listen, I'd like to schedule another time. I've got some time in a couple of days on next Monday or Tuesday to get back together. Again, I'd like to present that idea to you and go into more and go into greater detail. Oh, and so, Fred, I want to just finish up with the two questions here. And I'm going to ask you to put your dream cap on just for a moment, please. Just play the role with me here, okay? I'm going to ask you to put that dream cap on. Listen. If you had all the time and all the money in the world right now, okay, and there was nothing off limits to you, let me just ask you, what would you be doing in retirement? If you and I could retire today, we won the lottery, we were co-winners, how would life change? What would be different?
Oh man, I'd probably, play some golf, do a lot of traveling to Europe, that type of stuff,
Excellent. Do you have
Play
any
with the
favorite? Do you
grandkids.
have any favorite golf course you really enjoy playing?
yeah.
Would like to go back to?
Yeah.
You ever played the Masters?
Pebble Beach.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome! I've never been to Augusta, Georgia. But I've heard it's awesome. Oh, great! That's great news. Okay, well, here it is. If I could show you a plan that just blows your socks right off of your feet, brother, and you are just boom! It's like, oh my God, mind exploding. Okay, let me just ask you, what would be a reasonable? Let me ask you one more. What amount of money would that look like per month to retire on? So if you were going to retire today in today's dollars, what would it take?
I don't know, probably about 10,000 a month.
Okay, excellent. 10,000 a month. Now let me ask you the second half of that question. On a monthly basis, what would you be in a position to consider putting away? And remember this now, Fred. Be conservative. We want to make this easy peasy for you. We're not going to stress you out. That's not our goal. To achieve that goal right there that you just said you would like to achieve in a reasonable period of time, what amount of money would be reasonable to consider starting with putting away?
I could probably start with $500 a month.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent. well, that gives us a head start, gives me something to work with. I can certainly start there, put together a plan. But back to what I was getting ready to ask you, Fred. If I come back with this plan, and it's the greatest thing you've ever seen, is there any reason on the green planet God created that you and I couldn't do business together at that point?
No, I'm ready to do something. I gotta get it going.
Okay, excellent news. Thank you. Okay, and anyway. Oh, and thank you. Is there? Yeah, I always forget this part, and I'm sorry. You wouldn't want to retire alone, would you? So if I help show you the greatest plan that you've ever seen and you're excited to do it and we're on board, is there any reason I couldn't go share this same idea with 3 or 4 of your best buddies so you'd have someone to retire with?
Yeah, I wouldn't see any reason why. I'd love to share it with them if it's everything you say it is.
Excellent. Excellent. I promise you, you're gonna be blown away. This is gonna change the way you think about things for the rest of your life. Listen, Fred, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, 3 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Great.